Michelle, she should change her name to Misery Obama. That's really what I think of when Misery Obama never has a positive word to say. Never. Not about children, not about family, certainly not about her husband. By the way, before we leave this topic, here's her latest soundbite that made the rounds. This happened on June 18th, but I was off. Here it is, 39.
You should have threw a boy in the mix.
I would. I'm so glad I didn't have a boy.
Yeah.
Because he would have been a Barack Obama.
Baby Barack. It would have been amazing.
No, I would have felt for him.
Michelle Obama's image as America's favorite former first lady just took a brutal hit, and Megyn Kelly is the one swinging the hammer. It all started with a jaw-dropping comment Michelle made on her podcast, where she casually admitted she was glad she didn't have a boy because he'd be another Barack Obama. That wasn't just an offhand remark, it was a loaded statement that set social media on fire. Was she taking a shot at her husband? Was this an admission of deeper marital tension? Megyn Kelly didn't let it slide.
No, I mean, because when you're thinking of victims of this awful world, you think of Michelle Obama and how terrible we've all been to her. This woman is a one-woman destitution derby. Every time we check in on her at her podcast, she is feeling sorry for herself. She is criticizing Barack Obama or this country. She never has a positive word to say about anything.
With her trademark smirk, Megyn shredded Michelle's carefully constructed image, mocking her victimhood therapy sessions and exposing what she called the hypocrisy behind Michelle's relatable persona. It wasn't just commentary, it was a takedown. And in one viral segment, Megyn managed to rip apart the fantasy of Michelle as the untouchable cultural icon who floats above criticism. But if you thought this was just about one remark, think again. Megyn had receipts, and she came ready to tear apart the entire Obama mythos. And that was only the beginning.
Speaking of people who continue to play the victim even though they're not, here is today's daily dose of Michelle Obama, who has been out there trying to promote her terrible podcast that has absolutely no fan following. And she decided everything she says and does is a complaint. Everything. And so she winds up talking to Tina Knowles, also better known as Beyonce's mother, about marriage and divorce, which is Michelle's favorite topic, one of them at least. Number one is how much she hates her time as first lady. She hated it. And number two, I mean, you could go either way, how racist the country is and how much she can't stand it. And then we're coming in, at least in the top three, is her negative comments about her husband and her.
Michelle Obama has spent years crafting a public identity that blends Ivy League polish with I'm just like you relatability. It's an image that's earned her book deals, Netflix contracts, and a level of adoration most politicians only dream of. But Megyn Kelly wasn't buying it. On her show, Megyn described Michelle's persona as a luxury treehouse, perfectly staged but propped up by media obsession and institutional adoration. And she didn't hold back. It's curated victimhood, Megyn said, dismissing Michelle's heartfelt stories about her struggles as calculated performances. Every tearful anecdote, every humble reflection, every story of personal hardship.
From the Barack Michelle Obama appearance, the podcast, because everybody thinks they're getting a divorce, and let's face it, they probably are. She dragged him onto her show with brother Craig, and the following took place. Here's how it started in SOT 36.
Barack Obama, can you join us?
Megyn framed them as part of a brand, not a reality. It was a rare moment of someone pulling back the curtain on one of America's most carefully protected public figures. And the way Megyn did it, deadpan, surgical, and dripping with sarcasm, made it even more devastating. For Michelle, who has coasted on carefully controlled media appearances, this was new territory, unfiltered, unflinching criticism. And Megyn wasn't even close to finished, because once she cracked the surface of Michelle's narrative, she went for the deeper, messier truth that the former First Lady has spent years sidestepping.
Oh, I genuinely think she meant what she said. Oh, God, I'd have another Barack Obama on my hands. And who the hell wants that? I mean, we kind of can relate, but whatever, it's fine. It's different. We're the general public. But it was so funny. Like, I'll show the audience one other thing. Yesterday we had on Ruthless, and Josh Holmes was saying you should show some outtakes because we showed a tease. I'm like, we should show some outtakes. So they cut a couple of you and me when we were sitting there, and just how funny it was because she's so absurd. We had no idea she was this negative a person.
Then came the moment Megyn Kelly twisted the knife. Michelle's offhand comments about her husband and her obvious frustration with life in the White House weren't just awkward, Megyn suggested. They were part of a pattern. She hated being First Lady, she hated DC, and she sure doesn't sound thrilled with Barack, Megyn said, dissecting Michelle's podcast conversations with surgical precision. That comment about being glad she didn't have a boy because he'd be another Barack.
To work and going to therapy and just figuring out, like, what happened those 8 years we were in the White House?
What happened that 8 years?
What did that do to me internally, my soul?
No one talks about this.
No, they don't.
We made it through.
We got out alive.
I hope we made the country proud.
My girls are whole.
But what happened to me?
What happened to me?
Megyn called it what millions were already whispering, a public airing of resentment disguised as humor. Suddenly, the rumors about cracks in the Obama marriage didn't seem so far-fetched. Megyn connected the dots between Michelle's public digs, her constant rehashing of past grievances, and her emotional distance from the political machine she claims to despise. She wants to be relatable, Megyn quipped, but it comes across as bitter. And with that, the conversation shifted from a one-liner on a podcast to full-blown speculation about what's really going on behind the Obama brand. Was Michelle revealing her truth, or was this another carefully crafted performance? Either way, Megyn made sure we couldn't unhear it.
When she talks about like her time in the White House, Barack running, it's all negative on this new podcast. I mean, it's exactly what we thought. That it's very clear she hated being First Lady. She hated being in Washington. She doesn't like the fact that Barack was president. I mean, she just has nothing but negative things to say. Here's just one small, she doesn't like openly get, caustic, but she makes it pretty clear.
For years, Michelle has leaned into the relatable every woman narrative, sharing stories about her struggles, her parenting woes, her time in the White House, while simultaneously living a life of unimaginable privilege. Megyn Kelly called it out in brutal fashion. She talks about the struggle, from her multi-million-dollar mansion wearing designer trench coats. Megyn jabbed, highlighting the glaring gap between Michelle's anecdotes and her reality. This wasn't just criticism, it was a dismantling of the Michelle Obama myth. Megyn's point? You can't lecture the public about hardship while flying private and cashing Netflix checks. And she didn't stop there. Megyn ripped into Michelle's selective storytelling, the tearful memoir chapters, the relatable podcast confessions, framing them as content for the brand, not genuine vulnerability. For Megyn, Michelle's words weren't raw emotion, they were strategy. And in doing so, she exposed the uncomfortable truth. Michelle isn't just a cultural figure, she's a business. And every story about pain and healing is part of a well-oiled PR machine designed to keep her image polished, profitable, and above reproach. Megyn popped the balloon and the curated perfection started to deflate. Megyn Kelly didn't just critique Michelle, she went after the empire she's built. She's a brand, not a person, Megyn said, cutting through the glow of inspirational quotes and curated Instagram moments. And she wasn't wrong. Michelle Obama has mastered the art of selling herself. The Netflix deals, the sold-out book tours, the endless public appearances that double as PR campaigns. But Megyn flipped the script. She reframed Michelle's storybook journey, from the South Side to the White House, as a highly produced narrative. It wasn't the American dream, Megyn argued. It was marketing genius. And this is where Megyn's takedown became lethal. She didn't yell or rage. She calmly peeled back the layers, exposing how Michelle's image relies on a media machine too smitten to ask real questions. The former First Lady, who's been treated like cultural royalty, suddenly looked like just another savvy celebrity playing the fame game. For someone who built her career on being authentic, it was a devastating blow. And if Megyn's analysis was right, Michelle's authenticity was less about honesty and more about optics. If Michelle's public image is a luxury brand, then her podcast is supposed to be the flagship product. But Megyn Kelly wasn't impressed, and neither are the numbers. Despite big-name guests, Michelle's show hasn't exactly set the world on fire. Megyn zeroed in on this, mocking the therapy session vibes and questioning why someone with such enormous reach can't seem to hold an audience. "It's all complaints," Megyn said, pointing out that Michelle's episodes feel more like venting than meaningful conversation. She highlighted how Michelle uses her platform to rehash the same grievances, her struggles in the White House, her issues with America, and now subtle jabs at Barack. For someone who says she's done with politics, she sure can't stop talking about the past. And that was Megyn's point. Michelle's rebrand as a relatable motivator isn't landing. It's turning into a series of public therapy sessions nobody asked for. Instead of inspiring, she's alienating, and Megyn made sure her audience knew it. For Michelle, the podcast was supposed to be a soft power comeback, but under Megyn's microscope, it looked more like a PR misfire. And the internet? Oh, it lit up like a 4th of July fireworks show. Michelle's defenders rushed to frame her comments as honest and refreshing. But Megyn's audience, and plenty of casual observers, saw something else entirely: bitterness. Social media users dissected Michelle's "glad I didn't have a boy" remark like it was a political Rorschach test. Was it a joke? A jab? A Freudian slip? Whatever it was, it fueled speculation about a deeper rift between Michelle and Barack. Meanwhile, Megyn Kelly trended for days, with supporters praising her for saying what everyone else was too scared to say. Some even called it the most honest takedown of Michelle Obama they'd ever seen. For a woman who has spent years wrapped in near-universal media adoration, this was new ground, a rare moment of real backlash. The sheen of untouchability, the halo of perfection, it all took a hit, and the online debate wasn't just about Michelle's comments. It became a larger conversation about whether the public has been buying into a carefully staged fantasy all along. By the end of Megyn Kelly's takedown, the message was clear. The myth of Michelle Obama as America's unshakable, untouchable icon was cracked. Megyn didn't scream, she didn't rant, she dismantled Michelle's image brick by brick. Calmly, methodically, and with the kind of precision that made it impossible to ignore. For years, Michelle has floated above the fray, carefully controlling her narrative while basking in the glow of media worship. But now, the cracks are showing. Whether you agree with Megyn or not, one thing is undeniable: she punctured the bubble. She reframed Michelle from a cultural saint to a highly produced brand, one that's finally facing real criticism. And that's the power of this moment. It's not about one podcast comment. It's about the realization that even the most polished public figures can't hide behind their PR forever. For Michelle, this wasn't just a bad news cycle. It was a reminder that the crown can slip. And when it does, there's always someone like Megyn Kelly ready to make sure the world notices.